And with the rise in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, there are renewed calls for all levels of government to do more to address the increase in hate. Well, let's bring in CTV's Tony Grace with more on this. Tony, tell us about a new group that held a rally yesterday to spark more action on anti-Semitism.
Jamie, thank you. Good morning. It's called the Canadian Women Against Anti-Semitism, and they gathered hundreds of people on the lawn of the Ontario Legislature at Queen's Park yesterday. Their message was not only to local governments, but to provincial governments and federal governments. They'd like to see all levels working together on this problem, saying that the reality is the Jewish community is facing acts of hate on a constant basis, whether it be threats, intimidation, bullying, vandalism targeting synagogues, schools, businesses. So this is a coalition of everyone from community leaders to advocates, religious leaders, healthcare workers, students. They were joined by a number of politicians as well yesterday. And their call comes, Jamie, as we've heard recently, of course, from Toronto police, that since the onset of the Israel-Hamas war, overall hate crimes in the city are up. Those that are reported anyway are up by 97%. And we've heard that more recently, in early 2024, more than half of the hate crimes reported to Toronto police are anti-Semitic in nature. So this group urging all levels of government to get together and focus on an across-the-platform solution here, rather than sort of siloed approaches to dealing with a problem they say they're facing on a daily basis, Jamie.
And we know that a lot of hate crimes go underreported, and police have raised some concerns that some cases of Islamophobia are being underreported. What are we hearing about this?
Well, that's right. And I checked in with the National Council of Canadian Muslims because the latest Stats Canada data doesn't really paint us a full picture of what's happened since the onset of the Israel-Hamas war. But we do know that Stats Canada has reported that Islamophobia, the number of hate crimes that are reported that involve targets against the Muslim community, are a much smaller percentage than those targeting the Jewish community. But there is a concern by a number of police forces that these are underreported for one reason or another. People are not coming forward as often to report these crimes to police. But in the face of mosques being targeted, people being targeted, the National Council of Canadian Muslims tells me they get about a dozen calls a day informing them of incidents, whether they be in schools, workplaces, public places. They're calling on the faster delivery, Jamie, of a federal fund called the Security Infrastructure Fund, which is meant to offer money for security upgrades to protect places of worship, saying that in many times there's been so many applications for these from the Muslim community, from mosque leaders, that the funding doesn't arrive in time and ends up being a reactionary measure rather than a preventative one. So multiple conversations, Jamie, about the level of hate in this country and what to do next to combat it.
CTV's Tony Grace, we appreciate that report. Thank you.
Thank you.